Danny Cole had never expected to be here. He was 22 years old, fresh out of the academy, and somehow standing on the observation deck of the diplomatic cruiser Starward Hope as it docked at an alien space station. The stars outside the viewport were strange and unfamiliar. He was a long way from home. "Stop staring out the window like a kid at a candy store," said Lieutenant Marsh, walking up beside him. She was his supervising officer, a woman in her mid-30s with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She had been doing this job for 10 years, and nothing seemed to surprise her anymore. "Sorry, ma'am," Danny said, but he did not stop looking. The orbital station was enormous. It curved around the planet below like a metal snake, covered in lights and docking ports. Ships of all shapes and sizes floated nearby. Some looked like insects. Others looked like rocks with engines strapped to them. Danny had studied alien species at the academy, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. "Remember what I told you," said. "You are here to watch and learn. This is a diplomatic mission. They invited us to there to show us their culture and military strength. They want to establish their position before we start treaty negotiations." Danny nodded. Humanity had only recently joined the Galactic Concord, an alliance of spacefaring species that controlled most of the known galaxy. Many of those species did not think much of humans. They called them soft. They called them weak. They looked at humans and saw small, fleshy creatures with no claws, no armor, and no natural weapons. Danny had heard all the jokes. Humans were prey animals who had somehow stumbled into space. They were different. They were one of the most powerful military species in the Concord, and they wanted to make sure the humans knew it. "What exactly are they going to show us?" Danny asked. Glanced at a data pad in her hand. "They have been hinting at some kind of demonstration. They want to impress us with their biological weapons program. Apparently, they have bred some kind of creature for war." Danny raised an eyebrow. "A creature like a weapon." "Like an apex predator," said. "They claim it is the most dangerous life form in the galaxy. They are very proud of it." Danny thought about this for a moment. "That sounds kind of cool, actually." Gave him a look. "It sounds like a power play. They want us to be afraid. They want us to agree to their treaty terms because we are scared of their monster." "Are we going to be scared?" Danny asked. Almost smiled. "We are going to be polite. That is what diplomats do." The docking clamps locked into place and a soft chime echoed through the ship. They had arrived. Danny followed through the corridors to the main airlock, where the rest of the delegation was gathering. There were about 20 humans in total, mostly diplomats and military advisors. Danny was the youngest by far. The airlock opened, and they stepped onto the station. The first thing Danny noticed was the smell. It was sharp and metallic, like copper and ozone mixed together. The second thing he noticed was themselves. They were tall and with shiny black exoskeletons and 4 arms each. Their heads were triangular, with large compound eyes that reflected the light like broken mirrors. They moved with a clicking sound as their legs tapped against the metal floor. Danny had seen pictures, but pictures did not capture how alien they looked in person. Ambassador Al was waiting for them at the end of the corridor. He was taller than the others, with golden markings on his shell that indicated his rank. He spread all 4 of his arms wide in a gesture of welcome. "Humans," he said. His voice was translated by a small device on his chest, but it still sounded strange and buzzing. "We are honored to receive you. Welcome to Prime." Stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you, Ambassador. We are grateful for the invitation." Al's compound eyes shifted across the group, studying each human in turn. When his gaze reached Danny, it lingered for a moment. Danny smiled and gave a small wave. He was not sure if that was proper diplomatic behavior, but it felt right. "You are young," Al observed. "Yes, sir," Danny said. "This is my first assignment." "Then you are fortunate," Al said. "You will witness something that few beings in the galaxy have ever seen. Tomorrow, we will take you to our grand proving grounds. There, You will see the apex of evolution. You will see the creature that has made the most feared warriors in the conquered." Danny glanced at. She gave him a small nod that meant stay quiet. "We look forward to it," said smoothly. Al made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I wonder if you will still say that after you have seen it. Many species have visited our proving grounds. Many have left with a new understanding of their place in the galaxy." He turned and gestured for them to follow. The humans walked through the station in a tight group, surrounded by guards. Danny noticed that the other aliens on the station watched them with curiosity. A group of small, furry creatures whispered to each other as the humans passed. A tall, reptilian being with 3 eyes stared at them without blinking. Danny leaned close to. "Everyone is looking at us." "Of course they are," she said quietly. "We are new, we are unknown, and tomorrow they are going to try to show everyone that we should be afraid." "Should we be afraid?" Danny asked. Looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Ask me again tomorrow." That night Danny lay in his assigned quarters and stared at the ceiling. It was made of some kind of organic material that pulsed softly with light. He could not sleep. His mind kept wandering to what Al had said. The apex of evolution, the most feared creature in the galaxy. Danny had grown up on a farm in Nebraska. He had seen cows and horses and dogs. He had seen coyotes and snakes and hawks. He had never seen anything that scared him so much he could not think straight. He wondered what the creature would look like. He wondered if it would be as impressive as they claimed. He wondered if he would feel fear when he saw it. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would be an interesting day. In the command center of the station, Ambassador Al spoke with Commander N, his military counterpart. "The humans seem calm," N observed. "Perhaps they do not understand what they are about to see." "They will understand soon enough," Al said. "Once they see they will know their place. Every species does." N clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "They are small. They have no natural weapons. I do not understand how they built starships." "Persistence," Al said. "According to our intelligence, they are endurance predators. They chase their prey until it collapses. It is a strange strategy, but it seems to have worked for them." "Endurance will not save them from the," N said. "No," Al agreed. "Nothing will. And once they understand that, the treaty negotiations will go very smoothly indeed." Tomorrow the humans would learn to fear. Al was certain of it. The morning came too quickly. Danny woke to the sound of a chime echoing through his quarters, and for a moment he forgot where he was. Then he saw the pulsing organic ceiling and remembered. He was on an alien space station, about to watch some kind of monster demonstration. He got dressed in his formal cadet uniform and made his way to the gathering point. The other humans were already there, talking quietly among themselves. Stood near the front, reviewing something on her data pad. She looked up when Danny approached. "Sleep well?" she asked. "Not really," Danny admitted. The ceiling was breathing. Almost smiled. "You get used to it. Stay close to me today. Remember, we are here to observe. Do not say anything that might cause a diplomatic incident." "Yes, ma'am," Danny said. A familiar face appeared beside him. Tors was another cadet about his age, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was more serious than Danny, always following the rules and studying the protocols. They had been friends since the academy. "Can you believe this?" she whispered. "They are taking us to see their ultimate weapon. This is insane." "I know," Danny said. "I kind of want to see what it looks like." Shook her head. "You are way too relaxed about this." "What is the worst that can happen?" Danny asked. "It is just a demonstration. They are not going to let it eat us." "Probably not," agreed, but she did not sound certain. The escort arrived, led by Commander N. He was tall and imposing, with dark red markings on his shell that indicated his military rank. His compound eyes swept over the humans with barely hidden contempt. "Follow me," he said through his translator. The The transport is waiting. They walked through the station to a docking bay where a large shuttle waited for them. The shuttle was shaped like a beetle, with curved wings and a segmented body. Danny climbed aboard and found a seat near the window. The hung below them, a planet of green and brown continents covered in vast cities. The flight took about an hour. Danny watched the landscape change beneath them as they flew over mountains and forests and sprawling urban areas. Finally, they approached their destination. The grand proving grounds were carved into the side of a mountain. It was an arena, massive and ancient, with stone walls that rose hundreds of feet into the air. Thousands of seats surrounded a central pit, and Danny could see that most of them were already filled with spectators. But there were other species too. He spotted the furry creatures from the station, and the three-eyed reptilian being, and dozens of others he did not recognize. "This is their Colosseum," said quietly. "They use it to display their military strength. Every major species in the Concord has been invited to watch." "So everyone is going to see this?" Danny asked. "That is the point," said. "They want the whole galaxy to remember what they are capable of." The shuttle landed on a platform near the top of the arena, and the humans were escorted to a viewing box that overlooked the pit. The seats were comfortable, made of some kind of padded material that adjusted to their bodies. Danny sat between and looking down at the empty arena floor below. Commander N stood at the front of the viewing box, his four arms clasped behind his back. "For thousands of years," he began, "they have bred and trained the most perfect predator in the galaxy. We call it the. It is the reason we have never lost a war. It is the reason other species fear us. Today, you will see why." He gestured toward the arena floor. A section of the ground began to slide open, revealing a dark pit beneath. Something was moving down there, something big. Danny leaned forward, curious. They emerged. It was massive, 12 feet tall at the shoulder, with 6 powerful legs that ended in claws the size of swords. Its body was covered in natural bone armor, plates of white and gray that overlapped like scales. Its head was triangular, with rows of serrated teeth that jutted from its jaw at odd angles. Its eyes were small and red, burning with predatory intelligence. The creature let out a roar that shook the arena. Danny felt it in his chest, a vibration that made his bones tremble. The crowd of aliens gasped and murmured. He saw several of them lean back in their seats, their fear obvious. Beside him gripped the armrest of her chair. "Holy," she breathed. Danny tilted his head and studied the creature. It was big, certainly. The claws looked dangerous. The armor would be difficult to get through. But there was something familiar about the way it moved, something that reminded him of animals he had seen before. Commander N smiled, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "Impressive, is it not? That has been bred for 10,000 years. It can tear through starship hull plating with its claws. Its armor can withstand plasma fire. It is the apex of evolution." To demonstrate, they released a group of armored drones into the arena. The drones were the size of cars, heavily armed and designed to simulate enemy combatants. They opened fire on them immediately. The creature did not even slow down. It charged through the plasma bolts, the energy splashing harmlessly against its bone armor. It caught the first drone in its jaws and crushed it like a tin can. The second drone tried to flee, but was faster. One swipe of its clawed leg sent the drone spinning across the arena in pieces. In less than a minute, all the drones were destroyed. They stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by wreckage, and roared again in triumph. The crowd erupted in cheers. The spectators stamped their feet and clicked their mandibles in approval. The other alien species looked terrified. Commander N turned to face the humans. His compound eyes gleamed with pride and expectation. "Now you understand," he said. "Thee is unstoppable. No weapon can harm it. No creature can match it. This is what they bring to any conflict." Danny was still watching the creature. It had stopped roaring and was now packing around the arena, sniffing at the wreckage of the drones. Its movements were powerful but controlled. It looked around at the crowd with those small red eyes, and Danny could see something in its behavior that he recognized. He raised his hand, immediately tensed beside him. "Danny, what are you doing?" she hissed. But it was too late. Commander N had already noticed. "The young human has a question," he asked, his tone somewhere between amused and condescending. "Yeah, sorry," Danny said, lowering his hand. "I was just wondering, is it domesticated?" Silence fell over the viewing box. Commander N stared at Danny. His mandibles twitched, and for a moment he did not seem to understand the question. "Domesticated," he repeated. "Yeah," Danny said. "Like, have you tamed it? Does it follow commands? Can you train it to do things?" The silence stretched on. Danny could feel stare burning into the side of his head, had covered her face with her hands. The other humans were frozen in their seats. Commander N's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of confusion and growing anger. "Thee is the most dangerous creature in the galaxy," he said slowly. "It is not a pet, it is a weapon of war." Right, Danny said, nodding. "But like on Earth, we have dangerous creatures too, and we tamed a lot of them. I was just curious if you did the same thing or if it is still wild." Commander N looked at Ambassador Al, who had gone very still. The other alien delegations were watching now, their attention fixed on the strange human who had asked such an unexpected question. "You compare the to your Earth creatures?" N asked, his voice tight with offense. Danny shrugged. "I do not mean to be rude. It is just that where I come from, if something is not actively trying to kill you, you usually try to figure out if you can pet it." The viewing box erupted into chaos. Commander N was speaking rapidly in his native language, his mandibles clicking so fast that the translator could not keep up. Ambassador Al had stepped forward, his forearms raised in a calming gesture, but his compound eyes kept darting toward Danny with an expression that might have been shock. Grabbed Danny's arm and pulled him back. "What did I say about diplomatic incidents?" she whispered harshly. "I just asked a question," Danny said, genuinely confused by the reaction. The other alien delegations were watching with intense interest. The furry creatures were chattering among themselves. The three-eyed reptilian being had leaned forward in its seat, all three eyes fixed on the humans. Everywhere Danny looked, aliens were staring at them. Commander N finally turned back to face the humans. His translator had caught up, and his voice was cold and controlled. "You insult us," he said. "You compare our greatest achievement to common beasts." No, Danny said quickly. "I was not trying to insult anyone. I was just curious because humans have a history of doing this with dangerous animals. It is kind of our thing." "Your thing?" Al asked, stepping closer. "Explain what you mean." Sighed and stepped forward. She knew there was no avoiding this now. Danny had opened a door, and the only way forward was through. "Ambassador," she said, "Cadet Cole was not trying to be disrespectful. He was asking a genuine question based on human history. You see, on Earth, humans have spent thousands of years domesticating apex predators." Al's compound eyes widened slightly. "Apex predators? You have apex predators on your world." "Many of them," said, "and we have tamed most of them." She pulled out her data pad and tapped a few commands. A holographic image appeared in the air above it, showing a large gray wolf standing next to a human. "This is a wolf," explained. "One of the most dangerous pack hunters on our planet. Sharp teeth, powerful jaws, excellent endurance. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors decided they wanted to be friends with wolves, so they took wolf pups and raised them. They bred them over generations until the wolves became loyal companions. Today, we call them dogs. Almost every human family has one." They stared at the image, and made a low clicking sound. "You turned a predator into a companion?" he asked. "It gets better," said, stepping up beside. She had recovered from her initial shock and was now fully engaged. We did not stop with wolves. We tamed wildcats too. Some of them were large enough to kill a human easily. Now they sit on our laps and we scratch behind their ears. Swipe to another image. This one showed a human standing next to an enormous bird with a curved beak and talons like knives. "This is a falcon," she said, "a flying predator. Humans learn to train them for hunting. The falcon catches prey and brings it back to its human partner. We have been doing this for over 4,000 years." Danny decided to add his own contribution. "And that is just the animals we made friends with. The ones we did not want to befriend, we hunted. There used to be giant creatures on Earth called mammoths. Huge, bigger than this room. Humans hunted them with spears until they went extinct." Ambassador Al was very quiet. His four hands were clasped together tightly. "You hunted them to extinction," he repeated, "with spears." "We did not have plasma weapons back then," Danny said with a shrug. "We had to work with what we had." Commander N stepped forward, his earlier anger replaced by something that looked almost like disbelief. "Show me more," he demanded. "Obliged." She pulled up footage from Earth archives. The humans in the viewing box watched as the and other alien delegations saw image after image of humans interacting with dangerous creatures. A human swimming alongside a great white shark, one of the deadliest marine predators on Earth. The human was not running away. They were reaching out to touch its fin. A human riding on the back of an elephant, a creature that weighed several tons and could crush a person with one step. The human was smiling and waving at a camera. A human sitting on the ground next to a full-grown lion, one of the apex predators of the African savanna. The lion's head was resting in the human's lap, and the human was scratching its mane. A human standing in a pit filled with snakes, some of the most venomous creatures on the planet. The human was handling them calmly, letting them wrap around their arms. A human in cold weather gear standing next to a polar bear, one of the largest land predators on Earth. The bear was eating fish from the human's hand. The viewing box was completely silent. Finally, Ambassador Al spoke. His voice was very quiet. "Your species," he said slowly, "looks at deadly creatures and your first thought is to touch them." Danny nodded. "Pretty much. If it is not actively trying to kill us, we figure there is a chance we can be friends. And even if it is trying to kill us, sometimes we try anyway." "That is insane," N said. "We get that a lot," replied. The other alien delegations had begun whispering among themselves. Danny could not understand what they were saying, but he could see the looks on their faces. They were not looking at the humans with contempt anymore. They were looking at them with something closer to fascination and maybe a little fear. A serpentine alien from the back of the viewing area slithered forward. Her scales were iridescent blue and green, and she moved with fluid grace. "I am Ambassador Ra of the," she said. "I must ask, if you have domesticated so many predators, what creature is the apex of your food chain? What is the most dangerous thing on your world?" Danny exchanged a look with, nodded slightly, giving him permission to answer. Danny turned to face the alien ambassadors. He smiled, but there was something in his eyes now, something that had not been there before. It was confidence. It was certainty. "The most dangerous creature on Earth," he said. "That is easy. You are looking at them." The silence that followed was absolute. Ambassador Al took a step back. Commander N's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. The other aliens stared at the small group of humans as if seeing them for the first time. "Humans are the apex predator of your world?" Ra asked carefully. "We are," confirmed. "We do not have claws or fangs or armor. We are not the fastest or the strongest, but we are the most successful hunters our planet has ever produced. We can run longer than any other creature. We can adapt to any environment. We can make tools and weapons from anything. And most importantly, we never give up." She paused to let that sink in. Every dangerous creature on our planet either became our friend, became our food, or became extinct, she continued. There are no exceptions. Commander N looked down at the arena, where there was still packing. The mighty creature that was supposed to terrify the humans now seemed somehow smaller, not because it had changed, but because everything around it had. I think, Ambassador Al said slowly, that we should continue this discussion at the diplomatic reception tonight. Nodded, we would be happy to share more about human history. As the viewing box began to empty, Danny felt punch him lightly on the arm. You just changed everything, she whispered. You know that, right? Danny watched the aliens filing out, all of them casting glances back at the humans. I just asked a question, he said. But even he knew that was not quite true anymore. The diplomatic reception was held aboard the flagship, a massive warship that orbited high above the planet. Danny had never seen a ship so large. It was nearly a mile long, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays, a floating fortress designed to project power across the stars. But tonight, its grand hall had been transformed into a space for conversation and negotiation. Long tables were covered with food from dozens of worlds. Danny recognized none of it, but he was curious to try everything. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the hall, speaking in translated voices and exchanging diplomatic pleasantries. But unlike the previous day, many of those aliens were now watching the humans. Word had spread. Danny could see it in the way creatures stopped talking when the humans walked by. He could hear it in the whispered conversations that fell silent when he got too close. The demonstration at the arena had been meant to show the galaxy the power of the. Instead, it had revealed something unexpected about humanity. Led the human delegation through the crowd, shaking hands with ambassadors and exchanging careful words with military commanders. Danny stayed close to, trying to be on his best behavior. He had already caused enough trouble for one day. But the aliens kept finding him. Ambassador Ra approached while Danny was examining a plate of something that looked like purple noodles. She slithered up beside him, her serpentine body coiling gracefully as she came to a stop. The young human who asked the question, she said, I was hopping to speak with you. Danny set down the plate. Of course, Ambassador, what can I help you with? I have been thinking about what your lieutenant said at the arena, Ra continued. About humans being endurance hunters. I would like to understand more. Danny shrugged. It is pretty simple, actually. A long time ago, before we had any technology, humans hunted by chasing animals. We would follow them for hours, sometimes days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then we would kill them. Ra's iridescent scales rippled, which Danny guessed was a sign of surprise. You chased them until they could not run anymore, she asked. That is right, Danny said. Most animals are faster than humans in a sprint, but humans can keep going long after other creatures have to stop and rest. We sweat, which keeps our bodies cool. Most animals cannot do that, so we just keep following them until they overheat and fall down. That sounds terrifying, Ross said. It worked pretty well for us, Danny replied. Across the hall was speaking with Ambassador Al. The diplomat seemed much less confident than he had been the day before. His 4 hands kept fidgeting with his ceremonial robes. I must confess, Al said quietly, I did not expect this outcome. The demonstration was meant to establish our dominance in the treaty negotiations. I understand, said, but perhaps there is an opportunity here. The Inhumans might have more in common than you thought. Both of our species have risen to the top of our respective food chains. Both of us have shaped our worlds to suit our needs. We could be rivals or we could be partners. Al considered this. Your species interests me, Lieutenant. I have read the intelligence reports on humanity, but they do not capture what I witnessed today. Your cadet looked at our greatest weapon and wondered if he could befriend it. That is not the reaction of a prey species. Smiled slightly. Humans have never really thought of ourselves as prey. We have always been too busy hunting." On the other side of the hall, Danny had attracted another visitor. Elder of the approached like a moving mountain. He was nearly 8 feet tall, made of something that looked like living rock, with a deep voice that rumbled like thunder. "Human," he said, and Danny felt the vibration in his teeth. "I have a question." "Sure," Danny said, looking up at the massive alien. "What do you want to know?" "Your lieutenant spoke of human adaptability," said. "She said your species can survive in any environment. Explain this." Danny thought for a moment. "Well, humans have lived pretty much everywhere on our planet. Hot deserts, frozen wastelands, tropical jungles, high mountains deep underwater. We build shelters and make clothes and create tools. If an environment is too harsh, we change ourselves to survive it, or we change the environment to suit us." "Change the environment," rumbled. "Yeah," Danny said. "We call it terraforming, kind of, on a small scale. If it is too cold, we make fire. If it is too hot, we make shade. If there is no water, we dig wells or build aqueducts. If there is too much water, we build dams. We do not really accept that an environment is impossible. We just figure out how to make it work." Was silent for a long moment. His rocky face was difficult to read, but Danny got the sense that the elder was impressed. "And when you cannot change the environment," asked, "what then?" Danny grinned. "Then we change ourselves. Humans can adapt to almost anything if we have enough time. Our bodies adjust. Our minds learn. We might not be comfortable, but we survive." "Survival at any cost," observed. "We call it stubbornness," Danny said. "But yeah, basically." Commander N had been watching from a distance, listening to these conversations. He finally approached Danny, his earlier contempt replaced by cautious curiosity. "I have been thinking about your question at the arena," N said, "about whether the is domesticated." "I hope I did not offend you," Danny said. "I really was just curious." "You did offend me," N admitted. "But now I wonder if I was offended because you touched on something I had not considered. The is powerful, yes. Terrifying, yes. But it is also wild, unpredictable. We use it as a weapon, but we cannot truly control it." He paused, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "Your species took wild predators and made them into partners," N continued. "That requires something we have not mastered. It requires trust. It requires patience. It requires a willingness to work with a creature instead of simply dominating it." Danny nodded. "It took our ancestors a long time to figure it out. A lot of them probably got bitten, but they kept trying because they could see the potential." "The potential for what?" N asked. "Friendship," Danny said simply. "Humans do not really like being alone. We form bonds with everything. Other humans, animals, even machines. If something can be a friend, we will try to make it one." N was quiet for a moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are strange creatures," he said. "I look at you and I see soft bodies with no weapons, but I am beginning to understand that your true strength is not physical. It is something else entirely." Danny smiled. "Our ancestors figured that out a long time ago. The body is just a tool. The mind is what matters." As the reception continued, the atmosphere in the hall began to shift. The tension that had existed between the human delegation and the other species was fatting. Aliens who had ignored the humans before were now approaching them with questions. Some wanted to know about Earth's animals. Others wanted to know about human technology. A few brave souls asked about human wars. Answered those questions carefully, but she did not hide the truth. Humans had fought terrible wars against each other. Millions had died. But humans had also learned from those wars. They had built treaties and alliances. They had created rules and systems to prevent future conflicts. "We are not perfect," said to a group of listening ambassadors. "We have made terrible mistakes, but we learn, we adapt, and we keep trying to be better." Ambassador Al listened to all of this with growing respect. By the end of the evening, he approached with a new proposal. "The treaty negotiations will resume tomorrow," he said. "But I think we should approach them differently than I had originally planned. Though we're going to demand concessions based on our military superiority. Now, I think we should discuss partnership instead." Extended her hand, and after a moment of hesitation, Al took it with one of his four hands. "I think that sounds like a good start," said. Danny watched from across the hall, a plate of strange alien food in his hands, appeared beside him. "You know," she said, "you might have actually done something good today." Danny shrugged and tried something that tasted like spicy honey. "I just asked a question." Shook her head. "You really have no idea, do you?" Danny grinned. "That is probably for the best. 1 week had passed since the demonstration at the Grand Proving Grounds. In that time, everything had changed. The treaty negotiations had gone better than anyone expected. The who had planned to dominate the discussions instead found themselves treating the humans as equals. Other species in the Galactic Concord had taken notice. Word had spread across the communication networks about the young human who had asked if the most dangerous creature in the galaxy was domesticated. It had become something of a legend already. Danny did not quite understand why everyone was making such a big deal about it. He had just asked a question. The treaty signing ceremony was held in a grand hall on the room was ancient, carved from dark stone and lit by floating orbs of blue light. Representatives from every major species in the Concord were present. They sat in tiered seats that rose around the central platform where the treaty would be signed. Danny stood with the other human cadets at the back of the human delegation, was at the front, next to the senior diplomats who would actually sign the documents. But even from where he stood, Danny could feel the weight of the moment. This treaty would determine humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. Ambassador Al stepped onto the central platform. His golden markings caught the light as he moved, and his compound eyes swept across the assembled delegates. "Today," he began, "we formalize a new partnership between the Dominion and the Human Coalition. When the humans first arrived in our space, many of us saw them as newcomers, outsiders, perhaps even prey." A murmur ran through the crowd. Several aliens glanced toward the human delegation. "We were wrong," Al continued. "We invited the humans to witness our strength, thinking it would remind them of their place. Instead, they reminded us of something we had forgotten. True strength is not just about weapons and warfare. It is about adaptation, persistence, and the ability to form bonds with creatures that might otherwise be enemies." He turned to look directly at the humans. "The humans do not conquer predators. They befriend them. They do not destroy their enemies. They find ways to make them allies. This is a strength that they have never truly understood, until now." The ceremony proceeded with formal speeches and ritual exchanges. Documents were signed with both human pens and marking tools. Added her signature alongside the senior diplomats, representing humanity's agreement to the terms. When it was done, the hall erupted in applause. They clicked their mandibles in approval. The other species stamped their feet or slapped their appendages together or made whatever sounds indicated celebration in their cultures. Danny found himself grinning. They had done it. Humanity was now a full military partner in the Galactic Concord, with a seat on the Security Council and a voice in all major decisions. It was more than anyone had expected when they first arrived. As the formal ceremony concluded, Commander N made his way through the crowd toward Danny. The commander had changed over the past week. The contempt that had been so obvious in his eyes was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. "Cadet Cole," N said, stopping in front of Danny, "I would like to speak with you privately if you have a moment." Danny glanced at, who nodded her approval. He followed N to a quiet alcove near the edge of the hall, away from the crowds. "I owe you something," N said once they were alone. "You do not owe me anything," Danny replied. "I did not really do anything special." N made that clicking sound that Danny had learned was laughter. You changed everything, and you do not even realize it. That is perhaps the most human thing I have ever witnessed. He turned to look out a window at the city beyond. The stretch to the horizon, a landscape of towering structures and ancient monuments. Before you asked your question, N said, I was certain that there were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. We had the strongest ships, the most powerful weapons, the most terrifying creatures. But you made me see something I had missed. What is that? Danny asked. Power is not just about destruction, N said. It is about connection. They have spent 10,000 years breeding the perfect killing machine. Your species spent 10,000 years turning killing machines into friends. Which approach has made you stronger? Danny thought about this for a moment. I think maybe both approaches have their place. Sometimes you need to fight, but fighting should not be the only option. N nodded slowly. I am beginning to understand this, and I think they have much to learn from humanity, which is why I want to give you something. He reached into his robes and produced a small containment pod. It was about the size of a football, made of transparent material that allowed Danny to see what was inside. A small creature looked back at him. It was about the size of a cat, with 6 tiny legs and bone plating that had not yet fully hardened. Its eyes were the same burning red as the adult, but they seemed more curious than predatory. It opened its mouth and let out a high-pitched chirp that was almost cute. Is that, Danny began. A hatchling, N confirmed. They are never given to outsiders, but you asked if our apex predator could be domesticated. I think you should be the one to find out. Danny stared at the tiny creature in the pod. It chirped again and pressed its nose against the transparent wall, sniffing at him. You want me to try to tame it? Danny asked. I want you to try to befriend it, N corrected. You said that is what humans do. I want to see if you were telling the truth. Danny took the pod carefully. The hatchling inside watched him with intense curiosity. Its little tail wagged slightly. I am going to name him Buddy, Danny said. N made that clicking laugh again. Of course you are. They returned to the main hall together. Spotted Danny immediately, and her eyes went straight to the containment pod in his hands. What is that? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. This is Buddy, Danny said, holding up the pod. He is a baby. Commander N gave him to me as a gift. Closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. You were given a juvenile specimen of the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. Yes, ma'am. And you named it Buddy. It seemed like a good name. Opened her eyes and looked at the hatchling. It had pressed itself against the wall of the pod closest to Danny and was making small chirping sounds. It seems to like you already, she observed. I think we are going to be friends, Danny said. Appeared beside them, her eyes wide. Is that what I think it is? Meet Buddy, Danny said, grinning. Stared at the hatchling for a long moment. Then she shook her head and started to laugh. Only you, Danny, only you. As the celebration continued around them, Ambassador Al approached the group. He looked at the containment pod and then at Danny's face. I see Commander N gave you his gift, Al said. I approved it, of course. Consider it a gesture of respect and a test. A test? Danny asked. That has never been tamed, Al said. If any species can do it, perhaps it is yours. And if you succeed, it will prove something that many in the Conquered are still struggling to accept. What is that? Asked. Al's compound eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. That humans are exactly as dangerous as you claim to be, he said, and exactly as friendly. The delegation left the next day. As the Starward Hope pulled away from the orbital station, Danny sat in his quarters with Buddy's containment pod on his lap. The hatchling had calmed down and was now sleeping, curled up in a tiny ball of armor and claws. Appeared in his doorway. The Conquered's intelligence networks have updated their files on humanity, she said. I thought you might like to know what they added." "What did they add?" Danny asked. Smiled slightly. "Under threat assessment, there is a new note. It says, 'Do not show them your apex predators. They will try to pet them.'" Danny laughed. In his lap, Buddy stirred slightly and let out a tiny sleepy chirp. "They are not wrong," Danny said. Shook her head and walked away, muttering something under her breath. Danny was pretty sure it was the word humans, but he could not be certain. He looked down at the sleeping hatchling. In a few months, it would be bigger than a dog. In a year, it would be bigger than a horse. In 5 years, it would be one of the most dangerous creatures in the known galaxy. And Danny was going to teach it to fetch. Somewhere across the stars, the galactic conquered was still trying to understand what they had learned about humanity. They had seen the soft bodies and the lack of natural weapons. They had heard about the persistence and the adaptability, but none of it quite captured the truth. Humans did not conquer, they connected. They did not dominate, they befriended. And somehow, against all logic and reason, it worked. Danny scratched Buddy gently through the containment pod. The hatchling purred. Maybe, he thought, the galaxy was not so different from home after all. It was full of strange creatures and dangerous predators and unknown challenges, but it was also full of potential friends. You just had to be willing to reach out and try.